The AI trap. The AI trap. Artificial intelligence seems like it rules the world, doesn't it? This is Chris Jones. The Bonos podcast is returning in style. We're going to talk about something that so many people are concerned about and using and dealing with, AI, artificial intelligence. And to help me do that, because I'm certainly not an expert in it yet, I'm working to be, I have with me a guy who I think is, and that's my opinion, Joseph Noble from Legion Software Incorporated. Hello, Joseph.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. I've known you for a long time, and I know what you're capable of, and I've seen some of the stuff you've done in gaming and other arenas, but this is a serious thing. Tell me why you think artificial intelligence is a trap. What's the thought process?
There's a lot of ways to crack this nut. The fanfare of marketing right now with AI is it can reduce headcount, it can replace all these things, you can automate basically everything. But then once you kind of get into it, like currently what's out there in the software world, you connect to some API, so someone else's computer hardware, right? Let's just bring it all the way back down to like layman's terms. You're connecting to Microsoft's cloud, you're connecting to OpenAI's cloud, you're connecting to whatever, and you're sending content to it. You're sending your documents on how your business works. You're sending spreadsheets with financials. You're sending, insert thing here that is the core meat, the IP, the secret sauce of your company, so that the model can understand what you're trying to ask it, the context.
Right.
It has to work that way. But all of that, you've just handed all of that content to these large service providers about how your business runs. And you can sign paperwork that says, you can't use this for training. You can't do it. But the reality is it left your organization. You gave up control of it.
Right.
And that's been a trend in software as a service for the past however many years. Just ship stuff off to this other company.
Yeah.
And we've seen event after event after event of that biting somebody very badly. Content getting leaked. There's a reason why businesses like LifeLock and the equivalent on the business side, they're making out really well, right? It's because people keep handing their stuff over and then act surprised when it gets into the wrong hands.
Because they think there's no alternative. That's how it's done, right? Is that the mindset?
Yep. And the alternative is more expensive, which is why this works. Because you take the SaaS version of it and you try to stand it up in your own basement.
Layman term, SaaS. What is it?
Software as a service.
Software as a service.
ChatGPT. You go to a website, you log into it, you put stuff in, you get stuff out. You don't control the back end of that. Like that goes off to some place somewhere that Sam Altman has with models and all the fancy stuff. And then magic happens and it comes back. If you want to take that magic and put it next to you in your office, in your business, it's not cheap. Like the current thing that is, if you search for it, NVIDIA has this thing called a DXG Spark. It's basically a box, like a mini computer, but it's the entire like GPU cluster, like everything you need to put the model on it and run it hardware-wise. You still need the software, so you need more than just this device. That device is $4,900 and change.
Wow.
So it's not cheap to bring it in to an office space, and when you start talking about like needing 100, 200 people to have access to it, the infrastructure, the complexity, it makes a lot of sense if you want to use AI now to go with SaaS. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you want to protect the longevity of your business to use a SaaS version. Because the cost now up front of bringing it in is a capital expense that you could potentially benefit from for 2 or 3 years before needing to upgrade certain things.
Okay.
There's a benefit to not upgrading, which is you don't have to worry about the volatility that's been happening in these SaaS providers. Every 6 months, something new comes out, right? Some new model update. all of a sudden something you were relying on as a process is gone because
Yeah.
OpenAI decided, oh, 4.0 model, that's gone. You can't have it anymore.
I have another question. I mean, all that is, wow. That was a good description. Why are so many businesses, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, rushing and have already adopted AI? What is the big thing? AI is going to fix everything that's broke in my company? Is that is that the mindset?
It's been sold as a magic bullet for a lot of
Yeah,
things.
that's it.
So, oh, you can't hire people? AI can automate stuff. You don't need people. AI can do it. Oh, you need to reduce costs? Well, you can reduce headcount, have AI pick up some stuff, and then recoup it that way. Like, it all revolves around that bottom line. It's not, for whatever reason, nobody's talking about the quality of the output either. So AI is getting
Yeah,
better, right? Progressively. There's a big difference between what we saw in the market 2 years ago versus what's there today.
right.
But the reality is you still need a person involved, and the
Mhm.
people that are there that know it have only had, a couple years of experience playing with this stuff. This is all very new technology. And
Right.
everyone's rushing like a miner into Alaska from like 80 years ago to try and get as much as they can while they can and arbitrage that difference of all the people that don't understand getting left behind by all the people that kind of understand and made some progress with it.
In my own business, marketing, websites, voice work, stuff like that, I've put chatbots on 3 different websites which is AI, right? I mean, that can answer questions, and I've had to create knowledge bases that make sure the right questions or make sure the right answers come from whatever prompts a user gives when they go to the website. So that's my involvement with AI, and I have to admit I was rushing to do it. I mean, I got it done correctly, but I know the mindset. And with bigger companies, it's got to be like we have to do this now, yesterday, or something like that, right? That's how that goes.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of companies that as soon as there was a viable version of a model they could get their hands on, they did stand up. Like, I won't name names because I can't, but certain if you heard the name, you would know who they were. Firms.
Hmm.
As soon as there was a model they could get their hands on, they had an internal version of that thing up and running by hand.
Hmm.
They hired people, spent top dollar to get it in as fast as they could because they thought this was going to be, this was going to be their new hedge into the market. And it didn't quite catch up as fast as they thought. 6 months later, there's 4 or 5 other options that magically appear out of nowhere,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden the model's starting to get commoditized, and the only real hedge is again their proprietary data, which
Right.
if you stood up your own installation on your own hardware, you're still safe with. If you decided to bank on using someone else's hardware in a SaaS environment, who knows?
Someone else's hardware. So there is a possibility of getting your data stolen, hacked, stolen, taken, however you want to say it. But basically, yeah, maybe you still have it, but a lot of other people might have it too. Okay, now I know Legion Software has a solution for this.
We have several actually. I don't
What
necessarily
are
want to
they?
go too far into the marketing pitch for this because we're talking about AI in general, but because of how new this is, just from how do I put it? For a company to adopt AI in a responsible way, you need more than just a product. This isn't a turnkey answer for anything. You need people that understand not just AI, but really like the battery of details behind it, right? To name off some boring stuff, right? HIPAA compliance, NIST compliance, SOC
Right.
compliance. Like, to what extent does your data need to comply with this? You
Mm-hmm.
need a solution that adheres to it. Can you use some of the SaaS tools? You couldn't. Recently, I think it was XAI came out with SOC 2 compliance. But again, you're still taking your data and handing it over to XAI to do math. The promise along the way and the agreements is we don't keep it, we don't train with it, you never see it again. But the data still had to leave your infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
bounce around the internet, and get to their servers, get computed. Some things get cached depending on what you're asking for. Has to.
Sure.
Computers have
Yeah.
to compute. there's no guarantee 100% always every single time isn't getting looked at, some log, some error, something. It's a best guess.
Are there some companies that are better at doing that than others? I mean, losing less of your data?
There are, so the platform as a service providers. So if you think of Azure, you think of AWS, they're trying to operate at a level that's generic to whatever's running on their hardware. That's a little bit safer because a lot of times they actually don't know what's going on in your tenant, and they've structured it in such a way that they can't, right? You have to actually create an account for Microsoft to come in and look at your stuff on their hardware.
Right.
Which that's a level of security, right? If you want to use the cloud, you can take those infrastructure level guarantees, which are a little bit different than a software as a service agreement, and lean on them. So that's one layer of, that's probably the easiest layer of getting control of your data, is take a cloud provider, use one of their platform as a service offerings for inference. That's just the process of using a model, and hook that up to some sort of an interface that has a backend that you can control. So one of the things that we've put together as a product offering is an application that looks a little bit like ChatGPT, has all the basic features of, having a chat and context, and then all the enterprise features of like SSO and team management and everything else involved to kind of manage it, and content and memory that you can curate yourself. And then you can hook that up to one of those platform as a service providers, say Azure AI Foundry for example. Now you deploy the app in Azure, you connect it to Foundry, you deploy a database all in your hardware. Microsoft's guarantee, again, take different levels of guarantee, is you put that all in one data center. It's all physically located in East US 2, which is somewhere in Virginia. I don't know off the top of my head. As opposed to wherever it goes when you talk to OpenAI and ChatGPT.
Wherever it goes. That sounds almost scary when you say it that way, wherever it goes.
And if you're really paranoid, and I say paranoid in a good way, and you don't even necessarily have a cloud infrastructure and you want to keep everything off of that and only on physical hardware you control, that same application you deploy on Windows Server and point to another server that has the hardware attached to it that can run a model. We can do that too. There's a little bit more involved in like the setup of that, but you could absolutely take this whole thing and just put it in a closet. And there's a few other free and open source tools that exist that kind of do something similar. You need a couple developers, and anything you want to do to it, you basically need an engineering resource on hand to support. There's companies that are doing that too. Again, it comes down to the value proposition. Do you want to take free software and pay someone to make it work for you, or do you want to have a paid product that's managed for you by a vendor, and then you just have a known cost as it operates going forward?
Wow. Okay.
I'm gonna take a sip of coffee now.
Insightful. Oh yeah, you deserve it. Insightful would be the word I would use there. How does software as a service, AI, erode? I'm going to read a question that I have prepared for you. Erode data sovereignty in regulated industries like energy or manufacturing, and first of all, I want to know what data sovereignty is, okay? And what broader issues does this hold for any business handling sensitive information that might not need to be anywhere but inside their own servers?
Sure. So data sovereignty, if you think of the concept of a sovereign country, someone that is completely independent and not beholden to anybody else. Same token, your proprietary, whatever magic sauce you have for a business, whether it's here's certain marketing content, here's certain strategies you use for sales, here's certain proprietary application code, process, workflow, all that stuff is what makes your business valuable.
Right.
And your control over that data, to the extent that you have sovereign control, complete control over that data, it really affects how compelling your enterprise value is, or your business proposition in the marketplace. Because if that data is now freely available in some other tool by accident, which we saw happen last year twice, we had ChatGPT have their share links be publicly indexed by Google, and then Grok had the same thing happen to it a couple months later. If one of those links was all of those checklists because you were trying to put together a strategy or a summary or something.
Yeah.
Guess what? Someone saw that. Maybe a competitor saw that. Maybe they're like, oh, we can do this exact same thing. I don't know why we didn't think of that. Now all of a sudden,
Yeah.
your moat as a business is gone.
Ooh.
One mistake. That's all it would take.
That would be a bad thing. Why are the costs of AI, implementing AI, so, I'll use the word unpredictable? I mean, you say a CEO who knows a little but thinks he needs it or something. Oh, let's just get AI. Let's just get this account from somewhere, ChatGPT or whatever, and just make a thing out of it. So
Right. Let's talk about how we got where we are today, right? So
sure, let's do that.
if you look at OpenAI, nobody knew where they were. They were a nonprofit 4 years ago. Now they're worth $300 billion. The majority of that valuation is based on potential market cap, meaning how much they think they could sell of the product.
Mm-hmm.
That is backed by people who threw money at OpenAI to scale to meet that potential demand.
Right.
So majority of what you're paying for when you're using the API versions of the tools. So think of XAI proper, not Grok. Think of OpenAI, not ChatGPT. The productized tokens as a service feature is most likely, and I don't have 100% guarantees on this, most likely 90+% subsidized by those investments, meaning they're not turning a profit on that yet. They are using that to build out whatever else service product offerings, which we can see if we look at ChatGPT, which now has ads as of a couple days ago. They are trying to monetize that platform to show profitability to their investors, which I think there's a turning point that's going to come for some of these platforms in the next couple of years if they don't either jack up their prices to be profitable or find a different way to meet their investors' demands, essentially. So if you look at OpenAI's API usage versus ChatGPT. I recently did this. I pulled out my entire history from ChatGPT, and then I did a rough napkin math on how many tokens I would have used if I just used the API. It came out to around 15 million or something, about $150 worth of usage on the API over the past couple years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I looked at my ChatGPT subscription, $720 over the past however many years.
Yeah.
So $500 and something just for the privilege of having the interface and a flat rate every month.
Oh.
So flip that around. If you host your own model and you're just paying for the infrastructure costs or the token costs if you're using the platform versions like AI Foundry, you could pay that $150 and then you just need an interface that gives you that other percentage of the value, which is 2/3 or more of what you're paying for, right?
Right.
So something to consider. Back to your question. The cost itself is mostly due to this development front loading because this is new technology. We spend, for example, let's say, I'll come up with a crazy number just for an example. You spend $100 million to train ChatGPT 5, the GPT-5 model. I don't actually know what the exact number is, but you spend that money. 6 months later, that model is obsoleted by 5.2, or a competitor's model that just came out that they just spent $100 million on.
Oh, I see.
So now Grok 4.1 is better than GPT 5.1 or GPT 5.2. Guess what they need to do to stay competitive? Spend another $100 million.
Yeah.
So they just keep putting that money in from these investors trying to like beat out this race. I don't think the models themselves, like the model providers themselves, like OpenAI, XAI, et cetera, are going to win that fight. It's going to be whoever controls the infrastructure at the end of the day for those for that compute to run on. Because guess who's winning? It's the ones building data centers. It's NVIDIA building the hardware. Like they're making tons of money. NVIDIA's I forget where they're at now. They're over $4 or $5 billion or $5 trillion in value. I can't even come up with the right number. Because the demand for the chips that actually like allow this compute to happen is so high.
Yeah.
And eventually, people will stop paying those prices. NVIDIA will go down. The sentiment of the market will whiplash back the other way. But there's still going to now be all of these integrations done with these SaaS AI tools that are going to either collapse under the weight because now, we don't have enough compute to serve all this, so we're downgrading all these service tiers, and we're raising the price to pay for everything.
Downgrading?
All of that is entirely possible. We could hit a limit on, like, scarcity of resource could very much, like, stop this where it's at.
Well,
right now,
data
we don't
centers
feel it because we haven't hit the ceiling yet, but it's
Data
very well
centers
possible.
would be the thing that needs to happen, right?
Right.
Like
Yep.
lots of them, right?
Lots of them.
And you
That's
said
the nice
NVIDIA.
thing about... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say NVIDIA. You said NVIDIA's doing it. Who else?
So NVIDIA's building the hardware itself. There's really only 3 or 4 GPU makers. I mean, NVIDIA dwarfs everything at this point, right? AMD, just TMC directly has their own offerings, Broadcom. But at the end of the day, you got to take that and you got to put it somewhere where it can run, to your point, a data center. So who has data centers? Microsoft, Meta's building one,
Meta.
Elon's building one. They all need to be stocked with with that same hardware that runs the compute. And if you can't make it fast enough, you're still going to hit a bottleneck on demand. And what are you going to do with all the existing customers that try to scale? You're going to raise their price until you can afford it. Once that subsidization from investors runs out.
Well, you know what message I get a lot? Grok is under heavy usage right now. Please try again later. That's the result of not enough power, right?
100%. 100%.
And then X wants me to upgrade, spend more money and get more premium access. How technically does that work if I spent the extra money?
So for Grok, for ChatGPT, I can't tell you the specifics. I do know if you use Azure, you can reserve the hardware in the data center as part of the deployment. So instead of paying for tokens as a service, you can just say, I need this much compute. And that'll translate to 1.5 GPU. And that's reserved for you and your Azure tenant. So if you know for sure your company is going to need this much compute for the next year to run AI, whatever, you can reserve it there. And to the extent that Microsoft has the hardware to give you to reserve. Now, I don't know if they're doing a little bit of sleight of hand too, expecting their data center to build up and then they might end up in a similar boat. But I would expect, since they're building hardware, and AWS too, they're building the infrastructure underneath, that they would, whatever guarantee they're giving, they would honor to the extent that they could. Mm-hmm. The SaaS products, the ones that's $30 a month for the privilege of using their tool, which is ChatGPT, Grok, I keep forgetting the other one, Claude, all of those, or Anthropic's, they abstract that away from you, so you don't really see it.
How many, well, who is a better way to say it, the major players in the AI race? I know there's Grok, I know there's the Microsoft, and Claude, you said, and Gemini.
Yep.
Gemini is the Google one, right?
Yep.
Who are the major players?
So the big, I don't want to say big five, but the first to market was OpenAI with ChatGPT. The next one to have any meaningful contender was Anthropic with Claude. Anthropic is born out of the same team that formed OpenAI. It's an offshoot. They disagreed with strategy to some extent. There was a disagreement. They parted. They did their own thing. Then you have Google, who raced to the front with Bard and had a issue with that. If you look back in history a couple years, they tried to deploy something immediately and it fell flat really hard. Mm-hmm. And then you have Microsoft, who tried to do their own thing and then gave up and just rebranded OpenAI's models.
Yeah.
And then finally you have late to the party but actively gaining, at least in my opinion, market share is XAI.
Grok. Where do you see Grok going, XAI? Because I know Elon's pumping the heck out of it, but realistically, from a user viewpoint, I know you know all this. Is that going to surpass the rest of them at some point, maybe? Or
so financially, having the backing of a single person gives them a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
OpenAI has the committee and everything underneath it. Granted, Sam Altman also is on that. So he's got multiple levels of influence to drive that almost as a single person, which I think is why that's effective.
Yeah.
I mean, Google's going to just keep throwing money at it and their own special sauce. They've come out with all sorts of interesting consumer level products around Gemini. Gemini is actually pretty nice for a lot of things right now.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of XAI, I think, relative to the others, not that I'm advertising XAI, that because of the underdog effect, and also the fact that he's not willing to compromise on certain things, I think gives them an edge in brand. Because you might not necessarily agree with, the fact that you can create suggestive things or whatever in XAI.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that particular thing.
You don't, nobody likes that, right? That's a moral no. You don't do that. But the fact that he's pushing for the innovation and trying to get to the best quality product, independent of trying to cater to market share, which you can very much see with the other providers. OpenAI just launched ads. I just said that. Anthropic just pulled the rug out from anybody using Claude for anything other than their own proprietary stuff. Meaning, and technically they have this in their user agreements, but they blocked anybody at XAI from using Claude. They've blocked OpenAI from using Claude. They're basically trying to position themselves as having the best tool and the best model, and if almost like the Apple of OpenAI.
Right.
Which, to be fair, the quality of Claude is not disputed. It's also the most expensive one.
Okay.
But the last one that's kind of left out there is Google. And what's Google doing? They're going after consumers.
Gemini tools, or what's it called? Gemini Suite?
Gemini, well, they put Gemini in everything. So you've got Gemini in Google Sheets. You've got Gemini in email. It summarizes your emails for you. It does. Mm-hmm. They're all using, and coming back to my point about data sovereignty, as a consumer, you now know that there is an AI model that's combing through all of your data that's at Google. And they say it's okay. It's just staying with you. It doesn't get commingled. Please.
You're
Some
not
of us
in
are
agreement
grown-ups.
with that statement, are you, Joseph?
No, none of them. I don't trust any of them at this point.
Okay.
The amount of times I've been surfing the internet and I searched for something on one device and an ad for the same thing shows up on another device within a minute. Nope.
Yeah, within a minute. I mean, I've seen that. It happens
Different
to me all the time.
providers.
Yeah.
That's the key piece, is the Facebook ad that is a result of me Googling something over here.
Oh, yeah. That happened to me, well, a lot recently.
Yep.
Google something.
And
Facebook ad like a minute later. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And they'll put the asterisks of, well, you might have something on your computer. I'm like, that's fine. That just means you don't have better security and privacy mindset than I think you should. You are running your business in a way that I would not prefer.
Oh, that's a great way to say that. Being diplomatic as well. What's the solution to all this?
You need to take back control of your stuff from all of these other companies. As a business. As a consumer, I don't know if there is a solution. I think we're all just kind of up a creek without a paddle to some extent. Because you get what you pay for. We don't pay a subscription to Google. Well, you do for some things, but like all the free stuff they give you, what you're paying them with is your data, so that they can market back to you and sell ads to other businesses.
Oh, all the time.
That's how that's what you get. You get free stuff in exchange for ads. If you don't want your stuff, which might be important to you as a business, then you have to like not use any of that and have something that you can control, whether it's sitting on a box in your office somewhere, or whether it's sitting on some platform service or a server rack or something that you can walk around and know that it's not connected to anything you don't want it to be connected to.
Be like an intranet.
Yep.
Sort of thing, right?
It's a novel idea. We've had that for when the internet come out. There was intranets before there was internet.
Yeah, intranets. Internal. Is that what you're thinking is a solution to?
Mm-hmm. I think it's for safety of and control of your own data. I don't think there is another option. I really don't. You could find a platform, a service provider that structures their business and their transparency in market in such a way that you could. The problem is that brings risk to the business doing it. So if a business gives you the ability to walk through their data center, guess what they also have to account for? A bad actor walking through their data center. So there's a little bit of a nature of the beast, catch 22, whatever you want to call it, in trying to have a platform at scale deliver anything.
So it's possible to have all the data you'd ever need for your business, talking a business standpoint, even a Fortune 500 company, on an intranet in your building, with the only internet connections being never going to an AI site, for one. And I'm simplifying it a little bit, but if you know what I'm talking about, everything would be internal. Everything you'd ever need to look up or do or see would be on a box, an intranet inside your business, right? Is that
For the common man who doesn't maybe consider it this way, if you look at Wikipedia, it's approximately 100 to 150. I just Googled it, so Gemini could have failed me here, but approximately 100 to 150 gigabytes of content. Most modern PCs have hard drives that are much larger than that. So if you wanted the entire battery of relatively well curated content, you could just download that and point the model to that, and you might actually be half well off. If you want to host it and be able to search the internet, there's ways to do that too. Because at the end of the day, the magic that is the chat is really just this appending log of, you gave the model some text. It predicted these next words were most likely what you wanted. You give it more words that then end up on the top of that stack, and then it produces more words based on that. So you drive how it produces stuff. It's not really that you chat with it. It's that you're kind of driving how it's generating content.
And there's a lot of people and businesses on LinkedIn that are showing off prompts they use, prompts they've gotten good results with, even selling them in some cases I've seen. So it's a matter of getting what you want from a prompt. But all of that involves just clicking on OpenAI, ChatGPT, even Grok.com, things like that, and just asking it. But that goes out into wherever it goes, as you said earlier.
Right. And if you're going to use it for like generic stuff, like come up with 10 ideas for LinkedIn posts, that's absolutely fine, right? There's a certain level of the free tool, the SaaS tool, anything that's not carefully curated content that's relevant to how your business runs, that's fine. The problem is once you figure out what the stuff is that's proprietary to your business, you put that into the model, now it's left. And then you run into the question of, well, I need that information to contextualize my generic question. You take that content and then you put it out there with the generic question and you get a great answer. Guess what? Your information also just left.
Yeah.
So you almost have to go all or nothing if you really want to protect data. You can't really do half and half. That bleeds into a different concept that's happening in a lot of organizations called shadow AI, which is basically just shadow IT, but just shadow AI, which is a scary way to say people using IT tools that the IT department didn't sanction.
Oh.
That's really all that is. So if you take ChatGPT with a free account and you're in finance and you're like, I don't feel like using Copilot because it's slow and it's clunky, and for whatever reason of the day, because back to my original comment, data centers are expanding and contracting all the time. Sometimes the compute that they pass around isn't the best compute. Things break, whatever. Long story short, you take that spreadsheet, put it in there just to quickly solve a problem and move on and get your work done. Well, you just uploaded something to the cloud. And you can't take it back.
There it goes. So having an intranet with that has all your data on it, everything you'd ever need as a business, involves careful curation of the data you want people to see within the business, right? Because you have to upload everything, all the documents, everything associated with your business. I'm simplifying this from my viewpoint. Everything from your business has to go onto in some document or some data set or whatever you call it. That way people within the company can access it, and other generic things too, I suppose. As you said, the Wikipedia thing, you could probably put the whole thing on in a folder on a hard drive on this intranet, right? And you can theoretically have basically the entire internet or a good bunch of it and your own data on your own system. Am I right? Or am I simplifying this?
So it's simplified to some extent, but the general concept, yes, you bring all the content that's relevant to you off of the internet, and then you can interact with that and your content without having to worry about stuff leaving. There's some nuances and some technical infrastructure that's necessary to make that work at larger volumes. Models inherently have this thing called a window of interaction before they start to turn into nonsensical, uh, sometimes bizarre outputs. That context window, as they call it, is essentially the amount of material you can give it and then have it predict what would come out next in a way that is useful. And they've actively been working on improving that. So if you look at ChatGPT 4, you had a context window of, I think it was 16,000 tokens, which is like a few thousand words, right? You take that to today's standards, you can get away with 100,000 tokens, which is like...
Didn't I hear
10 times
Elon
that.
bragging about uploading very large documents and having it interpret and summarize?
Yep.
Do all of that, right?
Yep. So there's there's strategy for that. There's optimizations that have been done. That's all innovation around the tools today. So the models we had, this is why they obsolete every 6 months. Back to the investment problem. If you spend $100 billion to learn that this way of doing it isn't the best way, so then you spend another $100 billion to learn the next less worse way to build it. Take that, and then you move it right. You brute force the solution, because that's how a lot of this is learned, right? You pay the money to have people figure out how to do it the right way. That context window has been growing, but there is a limit to some extent on just throwing the context into it without compute. Like the curve of, oh, I need more GPUs to I need a larger context window. They diverge, and you end up at a point where you basically need enough GPUs to make up the planet to get to a certain point in context window, and it's not an infinite one. What they've come up with is various strategies to not actually give all the context to the model at once. So they'll take that 500 page document on, let's say, NIST compliance. You won't upload that thing into the context window. That's 80,000 tokens by itself. You're already approaching the limit of getting something useful out of it if you ask it a complicated question. They'll use this concept where they'll take parts of it and they'll embed that in the result. So they'll take your question, they'll use that as search criteria across the document and pull out relevant pages. So you won't pull up 500 pages, you'll pull out like 5.
Oh, okay.
That's traditionally what's called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. And there's various ways of doing it, but that in principle is kind of the same idea. You only pull out what you want. You search first, get the stuff that's relevant, pull that in, and then ask the questions on it. So in the context of, let me load up the whole internet, you wouldn't load the whole internet into the model. You would run a search across it. Use enterprise search of some kind. There's lots of tools for that. There's lots of integrations. Fundamentally, they all don't really, at least the way the market is now, apart from, like, Google had an enterprise search toolkit for a while, and there's other options, but it's not standardized by any means. And with the way that models and integrations are moving, new strategies are coming up with, it's a moving target, and it's going to be a moving target for a while. The question is, for your business, do you actually need the whole internet, or do you just need this core set of material that's
you wouldn't
relevant?
need the whole internet. That's almost common sense,
Right.
to me.
So once you think that there's some people. So the strategy of using RAG, people have just pointed it at their entire company's OneDrive of like 10 years worth of historical revisions of HR documents, materials, whatever. And then they're surprised when the answer comes back with a document from 5 years ago that mentions somebody that doesn't work there anymore. You got to curate the content if you want the quality output. So that's one of the
that's an easy solution. I'll just read all this stuff, just point it there. It's got everything.
To be frank, that's the work that nobody wants to do.
On a smaller note, when I set up the chatbots on, I have 3 different sites they're on. They're on Chris Jones Media. I have a radio site and an obituary site. Now on the radio site, I had a bunch of documents. I had it go point to every web page that's on it, and some documents I had that I put into the knowledge base. And before I made it live, I asked it a bunch of questions, and it's like, Well, I don't do that anymore, and that's a wrong reference, and that website doesn't exist. So I did all that before I made it live, and I made the documents accurate and everything that any question that would be answered on that particular chatbot would have the correct answer, not some outdated 10-year-old thing that I used to do. So, and it's the same idea with Chris Jones Media and with the Obits site that I have. So you have to curate it. You have to make sure everything's accurate so I know what you're saying because I've experienced it myself. So, what does Legion Software do to get this to work properly, the concepts you're talking about, protecting data for a company? And what kinds of companies are you looking to do this for?
So the main pain point we just talked about of let's take AI out of the cloud so our data doesn't leave and we don't have problems, right? You solve that by just bringing it in-house. So I'm a principal level engineer. My business partners are principal level engineers. We've got multiple people that have been building custom software for 10, 15, 20 years, some of them.
Ooh.
So from an experience standpoint, we've built a lot of stuff. And I don't mean the same thing over and over and over again. I have probably 100 different projects that are all very different. Some are web, some are back end, some are integrations with printer drivers. Like, we've seen a lot of stuff. So take that level of expertise, apply it to deploying any application. Forget AI for a minute. Just deploy a secure application that's only available in your intranet. So we've done that a bajillion times. Bajillion is the technical term. Mm-hmm. You take that expertise, you build the chat platform just like ChatGPT would, or ChatGPT is, I should say, and then you deploy that in your environment, and then you host that model inference also in your environment. One of the several ways I mentioned, right? Platform as a service, Azure, buy the physical hardware, however you want to do it. Take those two things, put them together, you're off the grid. You give up certain features that then you have to consider whether or not you want to opt in for that. So let's say, for example, I want to be able to do web search, which inherently comes with the risk of the AI, the model, saying, hey, let me go search for the name of this person and their social security number explicitly on the internet. That could happen. So you decide for yourself at that point what level of risk you want. But from the start, because you're controlling that configuration, you can just say, this thing's completely offline, and the only thing that it can use is the material that we give it. Mm-hmm. So you don't, when you're using a SaaS platform, you don't have any of the flexibility I just mentioned. You plug in your credit card, you log in, it decides if it's going to do web search or not. So there's technically a toggle there, but even a lot of the, like if you go and look at the documentation, the reasoning models will still decide to do searches the way that they're structured. So there's no guarantee. You host that, you take the toolkit that we built, which gives you, well, your standard chat interface, your project management, your single sign-on, like all the security stuff and user management stuff. Mm-hmm. You take those, you couple it with features around content management, specifically what knowledge, what memory you want to give the model. So coming back to our conversation around just pointing it at a drive and hoping it picks the right thing, the work that needs to be done regardless across the board is data hygiene or data governance, however you want to skin the cat. You take all that content and you figure out what's actually current and meaningful. That list is a lot smaller than all of your data.
Yeah.
You have to do that regardless. No tool has come out that can figure that out. At least not yet. That would solve everybody's problem that they keep kicking down the can or down the road, which is, how do I take all this stuff that nobody wants to go through and find what's actually relevant and just pull that forward? There are people trying to do it. Good for them if they can solve that problem. That's generally applicable to every business. It sounds
monumental because of just the nuance of tons of data.
And how do you know? Because it's going to be a product coming in, not someone that works in your business.
Yeah.
How is that product and the people building that product going to magically know what's meaningful to your business?
They're not. You'd have to have somebody from the company involved who knows all that.
Yep. So my philosophy or my strategy for that, because at this point we're not talking about enterprise search. Let me go find something from 5 years ago. We're talking about current now state of the business, current standard operating procedures. Like what is valuable today?
Well,
That
this is where developers like yourself have to work with company execs, the C-suites or whatever, the people that know stuff, and you have to work side by side, and you have to get in the weeds with them, which is a concept that I think works very well in business. When you're providing a service, you would be providing the service. Let's just say it's you personally, and you're in there sitting with a COO or a CTO or even a CEO, and making sure it's all correct, right?
Yep. And then how do you translate that down to the team? How do you coach the directors, the supervisors, the regular power users, even non-technical folks, how to understand what the information is that they're putting in, how it actually works. Like take the magic pixie dust out for a minute. Here's actually what's happening, and here's how you can influence it. Here's how you can trace how solutions happened and how certain outputs were created. Teach all that. So we'll do that, right? As an organization, we onboard someone.
Legion Software does that. They will.
Yep. Oh, we'll happily, if you just
give
wanted
little
to
seminars,
do training,
whatever you call them. Yeah.
100%. Reach out. We will absolutely educate. AI 101 all the way up to here's how you could properly implement RAG against a model. Like we'll talk to like we are developers. We will do that whole spectrum. Walk from I have no idea how to even do this all the way to I want to take these specific folders, take the contents of them on a daily basis, and analyze whether or not I should send emails based on them through some RAG pipeline, through some SaaS product. We can do the whole spectrum. Our focus, where we think there's a lot of value, is enabling companies to have that whole solution in-house so they can keep their IP and their data safe.
And that's the Legion Software's magic right there, putting everything in-house and secure, which is the fear that many companies have, and the public in general. AI's taken everything of mine. They know everything. They're going to come to my door and arrest me or whatever. There are all these fears out there. And sometimes the media perpetuates that.
Yeah, media and what comes out of some of the AI models too. This is a tangent, but I asked a certain model that will be nameless what was left after what work would remain that's technical once AI kind of continues down this path, and it was like basically none. You're going to end up in either a utopian or a dystopian society with either UBI or civil collapse. And I was like, you might want to curate that response, model provider. That's not going to make anybody happy. Also, I don't know how realistic it is, because the reality of scarcity of resource will keep capitalism rolling for a good while.
That brings me to the question of is AI makes stuff up. Tell me about hallucinations, and what are hallucinations?
So, if I can answer this without getting too technical.
Just,
the way
your
the
level
way,
of expertise.
Right. So if you consider the fact that a model is built by ingesting large chunks of content, books, internet, Reddit, there's a lot of material that's brought in simply to train the linguistics to know what word to say next, because you need lots of language to go through it to get there. That content, when weighted, can cause the model to say, well, maybe I should use this word. And when you're going token by token, word by word, it's very easy for that next word to shift slightly. And if you make a 1 degree turn enough times, you'll eventually go around in a circle. I bumped my microphone.
Infinite possibilities.
So when you hear about hallucinations, it's really that statistical, I asked for a banana, and the model, when it was running, decided that you really wanted a plantain. Oh no, you actually wanted a grapefruit. And then next thing you know, you have an apple, where the fine tuning of that model is saying, well, no, a banana is a banana, and it's always a banana, and it's never not a banana. And that's this kind of fine tuning and alignment that they do with that base model. So they dump all this content through this thing. They get a bunch of statistical math around what to predict the next word to be, and then they fine tune it and pull out all the what the internet will say is this, the kind of the spooky stuff of, if you ask it this, it'll come back with like a really dark story or something, or it'll ramble, or it'll come up with stuff. Mm-hmm. That's just nature of the statistics of the content that it was trained on. If you train a model on all of Stephen King's books, you're not going to like what it says.
No, probably not.
If you train a model on the best documentation for software engineering, which is usually very meticulous, very dry, and very straight, you will get very standard and rigorous outputs, which is why AI is so good at programming, because we've built this body of content that is very much standardized and rigorous and very easily pattern matched, which unfortunately has produced this weird sentiment of, oh, AI is going to replace programmers. No, because you're still going to need programmers to write the model.
Okay, let's address a basic fear then regarding AI, because the layman thinks that AI is going to replace them. They're gone. It's like, oh, I'll be out of a job, I'll be on the unemployment line, all of that stuff. How would you address somebody who says that to you?
So depends on the field, depends on what they do. So physical work, let's say running a excavator, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Way down the line. Our robotics are nowhere near there. They're trying to play that hype up. I don't buy that. I don't buy people being comfortable with that. I don't buy the risk that comes with it. No one's going to want that. We're not there. We're 10, 15, 20 years away from that at best. For the information workers, the ones that do business analysis, the ones that move data from here to there, the middle manager roles, there's a potential not to eliminate the role, but to significantly reduce the work. So larger organizations might be able to get away with like 2 or 3 middle managers instead of 5 or 10 middle managers. So that's a real thing that could happen. Though, to be honest, they could do that today if they actually spent the effort to optimize internally. So it's not that AI is going to take it. It was already up for grabs and no one else tried to do it.
I see.
Now, developer side, all of these very much formulaic roles where it's basically just pattern matching, there's a chance. Data entry, for sure. There's a chance data entry goes way down because computers will just take written files and OCR, pull out the text, figure out based on that and based on the form you give it how to fill it in. Those roles, for sure. There's a large amount of those that nobody really wanted to do anyways. They had to do because they needed a job. Those are going to go away. There's no getting around that. The base level roles will disappear.
Mr. Noble, we've gone an hour on this, and we could probably go 4 more hours.
Well, we spent 5 minutes fighting with video.
Okay, so 55 minutes. But I want to cover more.
Well, we can do this again.
I'm losing my seriousness right now. But I want to cover more of what Legion software actually is about and does. And you've demonstrated your immense knowledge of AI, artificial intelligence, and where the markets are now and where it might go in the future. And we're going to have another part of this, and we're going to delve more into it and expand on some of the concepts that you've touched on and brought up here. And I have an infinite number of questions for you, too. I didn't get to only about half of them or less because you're so good at what you do, and your knowledge base is, somebody could get an AI out of your head. That would, anyway. So that's going to wrap up this portion, or this episode of the Bonos podcast. This is, how do you want, are you Mr.? You want to be called Mr.? Or just
sure.
Joseph?
I don't have
Mr.
a PhD yet. I need more time.
Don't? Okay. It wouldn't be doctor then. Mr. Joseph Noble from Legion Software Incorporated. Look that up on what's the website address, by the way?
LegionSoftware.com. Okay. You can also find me on LinkedIn.
Okay. He's written extensive articles on LinkedIn and lots of in-the-weeds type of posts. You should check those out if you're looking to have any questions. Get him on LinkedIn and check out LegionSoftware.com. For now, I'm Chris Jones for the Bonos podcast. Talk again soon. And there we are.